Hey there, guys. Today I want to make kind of a story time video, I guess. It's just kind of something I wanted to speak on in general. So, as many of you may know, I have a personal project I've been working on for quite some time now. I won't get into the details too much of it since it's still very much in a very early stage. But in summary, I've got a couple servers now that run Docker Swarm. I've got GitLab going. I make all sorts of PHP projects, some Node.js stuff, and I'm looking into dipping my toes into more stuff in the future, things like Flutter or Swift. There's another one, not Kibana, but the other language. Android uses it now instead of Java. It's kind of like a refined version of Java. Hard to describe. But basically, I've got my own developer environment and stuff I've got going, all sorts of websites, applications, things I like to work on in my spare time. And it was great for a while I was doing this, and this was hosted on a couple of my servers. I hosted it at home, and I built it out all myself. All the websites and stuff I previously built myself in PHP. Some things I moved over to WordPress, simply to kind of make it look a bit better. I'm not entirely the best at CSS. I'm to put it in a weird way, I guess. I'm not all that artistic. It's hard to say, like, putting logic to art and design is not a strong suite, I guess you could say. So I'm not a huge fan of CSS, whether it's using boilerplates or doing it all myself. Even like I like to use things like UIKit or Patternfly, which it makes it a bit better, but I still feel like it could get some additional work done. I just don't know what or how exactly to go about it. So yeah, but basically, in order for me to continue my work, I need a strong internet connection. And given I like to do a lot of things at once, and it just made the most logical sense for me, I went ahead with the highest tier plan you could with my local internet provider here. I'm not going to give away the city, town, whatever it is that I live in. But in summary, they're local to the area. They don't expand past like the 15, not even 15 miles. They're a pretty small, ISP. But basically, what happened was I paid for, my gigabit plan for like a year. And given the overhead of everything going on between, DOCSIS and what its maximum throughput can be, as well as like the TCP/IP stack, there's a bunch of different things that go on. But basically, I got an average of like 800 down, 900 down sometimes, and about 35, 40 maximum up. Now, that was great and all, but they, one, clearly weren't competent. Even when I initially moved here, probably about 2 years ago now, 3 years ago, they didn't even have a gigabit plan. This was a company that was, here back in the 80s, additionally just for TV service. I don't know that they even provided voice services at all. But in summary, they slowly evolved, not very well apparently, into TV, internet, and voice service. Kind of like Xfinity, basically. But Xfinity, even as much as I hate them, has more competent engineers than this. There are some definitely great interactions I've had with Xfinity. I don't, it's nothing, not the whole company. It's a lot more of how, Xfinity chooses to be. I digress though. But basically, when it came to the local ISP here, I had a lot of occurrences where I'd just be doing things, and then all of a sudden everything would fucking die. Average ping to Google servers would be like 33, 35 milliseconds, and then just shoot up to like 600, 900. I think the highest without timing out was like 2,000 milliseconds or something, which if you guys don't know is a solid 2 seconds for me to even make a request and for it to reach another server. This isn't the time it takes for it to fully process everything, but for those who, well, I'll try and describe this the best way I can. I know not everyone here is some sort of expert. I don't claim to be. But to put it in a summary, when you make a request, you have to make your first request to a DNS or domain server most likely. So when you say, I want to go to google.com, you query usually your internet provider or like Cloudflare or Google saying, hey, what is the IP address or basically what is the street address of this server that has the host name google.com. Between that request to the server and not even getting a response back just yet was 2 seconds. So round trip was like 4 seconds. So as you can tell, like it was getting really fucking annoying. And it would just happen on a random basis. And because I work from home fully online majority of the time, it became even worse to the point I was relying on my hotspot here and there. And, I always came up to them and I was like, hey, what the fuck's going on? I've got, this and this to do. And it's like, well, we don't see an issue. So you're going to need to reboot your modem. And it's like, when I first got in, I was like, yeah, I've done that. I've, done a trace route. I'm monitoring the speed test. At the time, I was using OpenHAB, a smart home controller, to monitor speed tests. I would have it, conduct speed tests and do it automatically at this and this and yada, yada, yada. And all of a sudden, just these speeds I was paying for were just going to dog shit all of a sudden. And they're like, okay, well, we'll switch your modem. And it's like, okay, let's try that and let's see what happens. Okay, give me a new modem. Awesome, cool. And it worked for like 5 minutes. It was a little confusing to me. I was like, okay, that's weird. Am I sure all my network hardware is working correctly? Because even at the time I was using OpenSense, which, don't get me wrong, I fucking love. But I was also given what was it? Unify, my new dream machine. That was given to me for free, and it's more training that I can do. Basically the more network devices you can learn, in my opinion, and I know many others can agree with me, the more network devices you learn, Cisco, Juniper, Palo Alto, whatever it may be, the more beneficial it can be for you, the more adaptive you can be in the IT workspace. So I've had my fun with Cisco. I've had my fun with some of the older FortiGate firewalls, and I knew a lot from pfSense. And then once I found out about the drama, I moved over to OpenSense. That and because OpenSense was based off of hardened BSD instead of free BSD itself, or OpenBSD, that might have been. I don't remember. But then it was, instead of now being on a Dell Optiplex that had failing network hardware later on, I could now move over to something that was fully stable and I could rack mount. So it was the best of both worlds I was really looking for. But that was later on. Anyways, I was making sure my OpenSense box wasn't failing. I put in different network cards. There was no kernel panics, so I didn't suspect that there was anything hardware-wise really going on. Not that that's a blatant indicator by itself, but some of y'all understand. But basically, they couldn't fucking tell me what the problem was, and I gotta take a look actually at a little bit of their diagnostic software. It was, I don't remember what the diagnostic software was called. It was it started with a Z, but it was basically meant for cable providers, the little Cox port in the back. But basically it was diagnostic software and management software for consumer modems. So when they pulled up the diagnostic page for my modem, they could see the traffic, and they could see that for some reason the modem was saying that everything was fine. It was reporting that, there's no packet loss, the ping was normal, and then yada yada yada. And I was like, okay, well, I have these statistics right here that tell me otherwise. And even trying to use my own laptop, I plugged in directly my laptop, and I believe another device as well. And, just after like 5 minutes of boot up time, it was just going to shit. I was, just confused at what the fuck was going on. So I finally just said fuck it. After a while, if I had issues, I just gave up. Clearly there was nothing I could do, I even had times where I had engineers come out and fix the shit, or try to. I had a nice guy. I previously had interaction with 2 staff members at this ISP, and, it was not good. The younger fellow who came to my door, he was a badass. He was like, well, I'm not a huge kind of network guy, so I might not be able to tell you what the issue is with this and this and this. I'm just here to kind of test out the cable, basically, kind of similar to how you do it with the Ethernet cable. You make sure that there's no issues with it. You conduct tests to make sure that you can. Basically, when you send out one, you should receive one on the cable. There's a more refined process to it. That's not what it really is, but put it simply. And he was like, well, I'm seeing a little bit of this, and it's like, okay, cool. Well, at least someone's finally seen what the fuck I'm talking about now. And he was like, yeah, I get it, I understand. What I'm going to go ahead and do is I'll install a filter, and then from here what we're going to do is we're going to rerun the cable basically from the junction box, because it's an apartment complex. We're going to rerun the cable from the junction box to the modem through your wall. And I was like, excellent, great, yeah, let's get that done whenever you guys can. It was like, okay, cool. We'll get it done in this and this and day. You don't need to be home. You do want to expect, obviously, that your modem's going to go down while we do this, but we don't need to come in the house or anything, so no worries. I was like, excellent, that's fine. Let's get it done as soon as we can. Let me know what else you guys need. And great, cool. They got it done. And I was seeing a bit more stability, and this was after like a fucking year of fighting with them, It just got fucking annoying, and I honestly should make a timeline of this, because I think I'm all over the place at this point. But basically, that's what it really came down to, is just they reran the cable, which was probably rusty as hell, rotting inside out, things like that. That I suspect were actually going on. It wasn't the most stable thing in the world, but it was a whole lot better than what was going on. And that's for many different reasons. I wasn't seeing my ping jump through the roof all of a sudden. Things were behaving normally, and yada yada yada. I was fine with it. It was awesome. And then when I plugged in my UDM, because OpenSense at the time, I didn't have OpenHAB anymore. OpenSense couldn't really conduct automatic speed tests, but I saw that Unify could when I got my new Dream Machine. I was like, awesome, let's conduct it just randomly at 3 a.m., right? No one's really using the internet. My servers aren't under a huge load right now. They're more used in pre-production and development environment, if you will. But basically, it would run a random speed test between the UDM and Ubiquiti. And at 3 a.m., I would start seeing in the logs, speed test, 141 megabits down, 5 up. And I was like, okay, little weird. Let's go ahead and keep an eye out on it. I'm not a huge deal. At this point, I'll just take what I can get. And then eventually I started seeing the system logs. I forget where it's exactly stored in the unified logs, but it was saying like high latency detected, please restart your modem if this persists, packet loss detected, yada yada yada. And this would just randomly occur throughout the night. And I was like, okay, whatever, let's just deal with it while I can. And maybe they're actually getting someone to work on the network. I kind of hope that they had like an A/B testing group or something, where essentially if we can conduct this test on like a tiny group or like group A and it works, let's roll it out to the rest of the network and make sure everything's good to go. Excuse me. But I suspect they probably couldn't do that, or they didn't want to do it, or whatever. Their security wasn't great. I'll get into that later. But basically, what I couldn't see if they were doing work, but around 2, 3, 4 a.m., it was sometimes as early as 11 p.m., I was just seeing the internet go to shit again. And I was like, fucking fine, whatever, at least it's not during work hours. I'll take what I can get. Once again, I'll just deal with it, because what else am I going to do? They're going to tell me to fuck off and go home. So I dealt with it and stuff. And then probably about a monthish ago, I was uploading I believe it was an unlisted video, kind of just showing off some of the off-roading stuff with a couple of the guys. And this was a fairly big video. I think it was like 8 gigs. Basically, it was a full video of my dash. I wasn't using my actual dash cam. I basically mounted my phone mount that I used when I went down for work to California as a camera holster for my phone. And I just let it go in the background. I wasn't doing anything big. And then all of a sudden, this was during work, keep in mind. So probably like 1 p.m. All of a sudden, everything went down in the network. I was like, hold on, what the fuck just happened? I couldn't access the work stuff I needed. There were, things not responding. Just random stuff. You could tell the internet was going out, and I logged in the UDM. And it was like, primary internet service went down 1 minute ago, and it was like, what the fuck? At the time, I didn't see that my phone was ringing, but I could see when I went over to the server rack that the modem was blinking the internet icon, indicating that, yeah, it was still connected to the ISP, but the ISP was rejecting the modem, whether it's an authentication failure, authorization error, something was going on, basically, where it wasn't allowed to extend past the internet service provider's network. So I saw the ISP called later on. I was like, hey, what's going on? And they're like, oh, well, we saw you were uploading, and it was too much on our network, and you were taking other people down. So we went ahead and disabled your modem. And I was like, what the fuck? I'm in the middle of work here. Oh, well, you're gonna need to stop. And I was like, are you fucking serious? And right before I fucking let off, I flat out just hung up the phone, and I made the mistake of slamming it down on the desk. I really shouldn't have done that. That was a retarded move on my part. But I think I broke something internally in the motherboard. I took a look at it later on. The glass isn't shattered. The it's not that the screen, the digitizer won't turn on or anything, but just the system itself refuses to start up. I can plug it in. There's no connection to data. There's no vibration. The screen won't turn on. Like the motherboard is cooked. It's a OnePlus 7 Pro, and I really fucked up there. I was lucky enough. I had a spare phone, an older S8, or an S8 Plus, whatever. But I in hindsight, I probably should have canned it a little bit more on being aggressive. But in all fairness, well, it doesn't excuse that I did that. Um, when it comes to your internet provider, it should not be up to you as the consumer or the endpoint to refine your upload download. If I'm some 90-year-old grandma or whatever, and all of a sudden you just disable the internet I was using to browse Facebook on, you really think I'm gonna know how the fuck to make sure that I'm not going over my traffic or my traffic bandwidth? No. And that should go for any internet service provider. So for them to disable my internet service because I was using too much, A, tells me that their hardware is weak. They probably haven't updated it in years. And B, tells me that they're probably not using a hard bandwidth cap. If I can essentially take out part of the block that uses their internet service, which I was told that I can't confirm it because obviously I don't have access to that, but I was told by their staff that the amount of upload I was pushing, keep in mind, I wasn't downloading anything. I was using a simple 45 megabit upload, and, everything's going on in the network. It probably wasn't anything over 10 megabits download. But for that alone to essentially cause others to go offline on their network also tells me that there is something really wrong with how they conduct work or their business or whatever. When it comes to Comcast, you have a data limit, at least last time I checked. Sure, you go over the 1 terabyte, you're charged extra, whatever. And sure, Comcast may be a big company. But still, if you have hardware that can accept that kind of bandwidth, which gigabit has been out for how long now on your standard Ethernet ports, if you can push that kind of traffic on your hardware and you're not limiting it and it can harm the rest of your network, you're pretty fucking stupid. So they have no hard bandwidth caps. They refuse to do actual work, and they just have so much fucking competency. But yet, for me to switch to another provider, the only few alternatives I have are Starlink, which I have been looking into. It's just fucking pricey. Starting out as 20 years old, trying to pay $800, $700, $800 for a satellite dish and some internet access, it's pretty big purchase right there. Or I can go with a CenturyLink DSL route, which for $60 a month I get a whole 10 megabits download, and that's not assured. I've had DSL before when I was younger, little chitlin, where I think we paid for 7.5 megabit down and like 1 megabit up, and that was quite literally all our telephone line could survive. And at the time, we probably got 0.1 megabit up and maybe 3 to 4 down. It really wasn't, anything magical. We probably could have had a better price with fucking dial-up. Once again through CenturyLink. But yeah, it wasn't good all around, and that's saying that if the telephone ports even work in this facility. This apartment complex isn't anything fancy or new. taking a look at the places I was previously at, like, funny enough, the Irvine Communities apartment complex, Park Place Homes. I stayed there for a little while for work, and the night when I was about to leave, or the night before I left, the fire alarms went off because of someone's cooking, which I found hilarious as fuck. But like when you look at those places, a lot of those buildings, especially in Irvine, they probably aren't any older than like 2010. The apartments I'm in, I'm pretty sure were built around the 70s. And I'm not, being like, oh my god, they're so old, and, it's 5 years or whatever. But the coax in this building wasn't even here when it was originally built. You could tell. I've accidentally ripped off the faceplate for the coax line because I pulled my server rack out too far and the modem was sitting there. And all the coax literally is a hole drilled through the drywall and out the other side. There's fuck, I forget what it was called. There's no plastic box that was nailed into the joints. There's, no central media box. It's quite literally, whoa, hole be upon ye, stick a coax cable through it, and call it a day. So, that was reassuring. And then not to even mention, too, the coax port I have on the sidewall that's not facing outwards. I'm not even sure why it's there, but it doesn't fucking work. There's no tap to it. It's not hooked up to anything. And I'm pretty sure it just goes straight to the other apartment, to the other side of me, one of my friends. We haven't tested it. I haven't cared to test it. Probably could at some point. But anyways, yeah, it's an old town, an ISP that hasn't been updated, and they know full and well that if you're gonna try and go anywhere else, good luck, fucko. And that's just talking on their stability. Like they're not stable at all, and everyone pretty much doesn't have a fucking choice. I've been running on an AT&T mobile router for this entire period now, the month, which I will admit is a whole lot more fucking stable, and I push a whole lot more traffic through that with more success than I did with the previous ISP. I think my last month's mobile data usage, my phone, my new Galaxy S9, I pushed 120 gigabytes, and my mobile router pushed like 510 gigabytes in 1 month. So it's fun as hell to try and push that limit, and AT&T doesn't seem to give a fuck. They deprioritize me, but even the amount of traffic I still push through and stuff, they're like, whatever, fuck it. I pay less for AT&T than I do for the previous ISP. And I don't run my servers, that is part of it, but at the same time, like, I'm only paying $60 for about 25-30 megabits down and 10-15 up, and I'd rather much pay that and have it stay stable, and get some extra benefits with it, rather than be sitting at home with internet that could go down at any time for maintenance, and I don't even fucking know, or God forbid that someday their system gets hacked, their payment system or their customer database, whatever it is, because I know full and well their dumbasses don't keep that shit secured. And that's another thing I wanted to touch on too is, so when I initially moved here, it was really funny. I got my internet service, and like 1 or 2 months down the road, I went to go to their website because I didn't have the payment link bookmarked at the time. I didn't sign up for it. Their main website turned into, I think it was a Polish duffel bag shop. You went to www.yeehawitsjakesisp.com, and then it would redirect you a couple times. It'd be like shop dash Kolstonova dash yada 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 dot some other bullshit. I think it's on the Internet Archive actually, but it was really fucking funny, and that should have been my first red flag as to how fucking stupid these guys are. But there was that. There was obviously internet constantly going down. The lady at the front desk, I want to fault her, but I don't, because, well, she tried her best to help me and everything. When it came down to actually, saying, hey, no, this is wrong. You guys are doing something. It's not my problem. It is yours. You need to fix it. She got very passive aggressive with me, and even when I canceled, I had no bullshit left to, fuck with it. Basically, I had no fucks to give after I came in. I slammed the phone down. I went straight to the office with my modem in hand. I was like, I wish to terminate my account now. I'm not paying for this. And she was like, oh, well, I was trying to call you before you hung up. I was like, I don't care. If you guys are going to do this while I work, I'm not going to pay the $100 a month for you guys to basically shove a middle finger in my ass. Cancel my account. She was like, okay. She went ahead with it, and she was like, well, if you don't care. Is it done? Yeah, it's done. You don't have to pay for the rest of the month. Cool. Okay, bye. Just walked out the door. I was like 2 seconds away from seeing nothing but blood red or something. I don't remember how that phrase goes, but basically I was pretty fucking pissed. But it was a fucking nightmare. And then, not to mention, around the times that before they replaced the cable too, I don't remember this guy's name, and I'm not here to dox anyone or tell you guys to go harass them or anything. Hence why I'm not mentioning company names here either. But one of their quote-unquote engineers or whatever came out, and I showed him OpenSense was saying high latency and packet loss. It was like, well, my internet service is fine at home, so it must be a you issue. It's like, are you fucking serious? One, of course, it's going to be fine for you guys. It kind of just comes with any job where if you use the same service that you work with, you're probably going to make sure that you're fine or you're a priority customer. One. Two, you don't fucking say that shit to a customer. I don't, if I'm a car salesman and, you're like, well, this price is a little risky for me. I don't think I want to go for it. And it's like, well, I can afford it, so it just must be, how you spend things. It was like, you don't fucking do that. Just shut the fuck up and do your job and figure out what the fuck the issue is. It is not that hard. I mean, apparently to them it was, because they couldn't find a fucking foot from their ass. But holy shit. Like, I just can't imagine this company staying alive. Like, the only reason I'm pretty sure they are the most successful ISP in this town is because they don't have any competition. And I'm not trying to be, some magical conspiracy theorist here and put on a tinfoil hat, but one, we're not too far from a Comcast tap. It's a few miles out, and I'm sure more people in this town would be much happier with Comcast, as stupid as it can be at sometimes, or Xfinity, or whatever the fuck you want to call them. But nonetheless, it's been like 15, 20 plus years, they have yet to even touch this town. And it's a relatively large town, I think like with 10,000 people in the summer or something. And then, like, there's multiple other services and providers that come out here. And there's a provider trying to work their way through this town. they're, not able to get everyone and stuff, and it's just like, this town's been here forever. This company has been here forever, 40, 50 plus years, but yet for the people who are here who actually need to do work, it's like, holy shit. I don't know what to fucking say. So, I mean, I guess kind of ending on, for those, I guess, in power or in a government position, survey your citizens and question them, and, pay attention to internet providers in your area. I'm not here to tell you that internet is everything when it comes to a town. It certainly isn't. It should be more than just that. But with how many people do need it every day for work or side jobs or whatever it may be, or maybe you're in a large complex at work or at home, where it's better just to be on the Wi-Fi than mobile data. It makes sense to at least have a few different providers that are high speed, because 10 megabits doesn't cut it. 10 megabits isn't guaranteed on DSL. I highly doubt you're even going to get that on DSL anyways. But just, like, seriously, come on. I don't know. I know I kind of ranted my head off here with this, but in summary, what I wanted to take away from this, and for those who kind of want the short summary, advocate for multiple internet providers in your area. Even if the current one is good, in your opinion, it's good to have a good selection of providers. It's good to have competition, and it's especially good to bring business to your area. You could have data centers, you could have people, like YouTube creators, or, as much as I hate these types of people, TikTok creators. Having a high speed internet provider or multiple providers in your area brings about more people wanting to live there, because it might be cheap, it might be an affordable place, and they have high speed internet they can use for gaming, they can use for work, they can use wherever the fuck they want. Especially like home labbers like me, or big enthusiast guys who run many data centers out of the basement. Basically, it's an endless thing of what you could really use your internet for. But yeah, it's, treat your customers well. Make sure you have plenty of providers in your area, and yeah, I guess that's a key takeaway from this. So I wanted to kind of do a little bit of story time because I thought it was an interesting story. I might do more here in the future, especially kind of technical stories, and maybe a podcast later on. I've been meaning to do that, but I've had a lot of personal stuff going on myself. So yeah, thank you guys for listening or watching, whatever it may be, and have you guys a very, very Merry Christmas. Yeah. That's how I'm going to end the video. Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah. Goodbye.